Did a right
Oh my God. How many times am I going to do the intro like that where it's totally muted and you guys cannot hear me? Like, it happens every week. It's almost like I've never done this before. Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. We're going to be going over the most recent Arsenal news and transfer news. So make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel. Do not mind me. I'm not feeling at my best. So I'm wearing the same sweatshirt as yesterday. Allow it, please. Like, I'm struggling so bad this morning, but I wanted to make sure that I hopped on and we chit-chatted and had a little bit of fun because you guys know I like to rattle you guys just a little bit. So on today's show, we're going to be talking about whether or not you take Jadon Sancho at Arsenal. Chelsea and Arsenal are battling for Ivan Toney. We have a price tag as well. We'll talk about that. Arteta speaks on Charlie Patino. And the Declan Rice derby is tomorrow. Arsenal play West Ham at the London Stadium in the Carabao Cup tomorrow. So we're going to talk about that as well. So get in the chat and let me know how you guys are feeling, what you guys are thinking. If you guys feel sorry for me, if you guys are annoyed by the Sancho thing, let's just have fun. Let's just have fun. So Jadon Sancho, definitely flopped. Let's say he flopped because I don't think there's any way back. He's not even in the process of flopping. He has flopped at Manchester United. And one of the funniest parts about this is they took 2 seasons or 2 years to get him. There was one transfer window where they couldn't get him from Dortmund, and then the next one rolled around and they finally got him. I think a lot of it was based on marketing and selling shirts and things like that. And he just hasn't really got going at all. Like, shocking. Not really, because, besides Rashford, how many of their attackers have actually had decent return? It's crazy. And for a player that was so heavily like hyped coming from Dortmund, it's like crazy how big the fall is. Like, it is a very steep and harsh fall for Jadon Sancho. He's still a young player, and it just seems like this move was just not the right one. And it's funny because I just saw a tweet, somebody saying like the Manchester United effect, where obviously like Holland goes up there and receives his award yesterday, and so does Jude Bellingham, but Sancho is nowhere to be found. All 3 players from Dortmund did big things at Dortmund, and Sancho is the odd man out. And I wonder if it's more, is it Sancho? Is it Man United? Or is it both? A little bit of both? I have concerns on whether or not Jadon Sancho is a hard worker. I don't think that that's like out of the realm. It's not out of the realm of possibility that he's just not that hard of a worker. Is he somebody that just kind of like got the big move and relaxed? Is it Bundesliga tax? Is it Man United tax? Like, they spent so much money on this guy and he's on like 300,000 pounds a week or some nonsense like that. Like, damn, like it has been crazy, his fall. But nevertheless, the banter must banter on. And so let's watch this little clip.
he did a right foot finishing drill and he scored. No, wait.
So he's saying that he scores more goals than me in training.
Listen, we did a right foot finishing drill and he's finished on how many goals?
How many goals did he get this season?
So obviously that's, Bukayo Saka and Sancho at England camp in 2021. How the turntables, my friend. Back then, Saka, people were asking whether or not Saka was good enough to get into the England squad. How is he getting in over so-and-so? Is Bowen better? Is so-and-so better? And Sancho is nowhere to be found. And Saka is now a starter, like a main part of England's setup. Isn't that crazy? I remember that video came out and all these Man United fans and all these other fans were like putting that out there like, ha 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 ha. Damn, in 2 years, like that is insane. And so, you know, I'm happy that our boy has become like the main fixture, but I do wonder about players like Sancho, players like Havertz, players like that that come from the Bundesliga to the Premier League, make these big moves, have so much like hype around them, and like literally nothing happens and they just completely flop. It's insane. Now, wow. Okay, so the title, would you take Sancho at Arsenal? Now, before you guys come and kill me, because I know people are going to be like, Josh, you're always doing these things. You guys are always talking about things that we shouldn't even be talking about. Just entertain me. Just allow me for a second. It's Tuesday. I'm trying to have a little bit of fun. Not feeling well. Just come on this journey with me, just a little bit. So this is coming from the real Tommy's hairdo. I don't know who this is, but looking at his account, he seems like basically the Manchester City version of Team News and Ticks or something like that. And he basically said that Sancho has a loan offer from Saudi and Italy, but is prepared to take a substantial hit on his existing wages to seal a permanent move in January to a top club in England. He would take an opportunity. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to laugh. He would take an opportunity to speak to Pep at this stage. Same goes for Arteta. He would take any opportunity to speak to Pep or Arteta at this stage. You guys, I'm sure you would. I'm sure you would. If Arteta answered the phone, I would be very surprised. I would be very, very surprised. Of course you would want to speak to Pep or Arteta. But my friend, you have not earned the right to speak to Pep or Arteta. You need to be trying to call Unai Emery. You need to be trying to call De Zerbi. You need to call somebody like that. You need you have done nothing over the last 2 seasons to warrant a move to 2 of the best teams in the country. Are you crazy? Yo, he would take any opportunity to. I'm sure you would. I'm sure you would, Jaden. I'm sure you would. But I have seen some Arsenal fans entertaining the idea of Jaden Sancho, taking on Project Sancho after taking on Project Havertz for me is just a little bit too much of, it's too much project for me. We're already the, I don't know, Wonder Kid Rehabilitation Center. We've done it with Odegaard. We're trying to do it with Havertz. Do we really need to add Chunky Sancho on top of that? Do we? I don't think so. Now, we do need another attacker. And Jadon Sancho, in his past, has been a very talented creative forward. He's not a winger. He's a creative forward. Maybe he could play in the number 10 role, But we already have enough players in the team that it's kind of like, what position do they play? Havertz, Emile Smith-Rowe stand out to me in that regard, where they're not quite wingers. They're not center forwards. They're kind of number 10s, but we play with 8s, So where would this player even fit in? It's insane that he's sat there at Manchester United and feels like he would take the opportunity to speak to Pep or Arteta. You need to call Unai Emery, my friend. You need to call Roberto De Zerbi, my friend. You really do. Maybe you can't even call Eddie Howe, because Eddie Howe is not even going to take you. He fits the profile in terms of English Premier League player, young player that needs some rehabilitation. But we already got one project that we're trying to make work. We don't need you to, buddy. It's so funny. I'm sure you would. I'm sure you would take the opportunity. Nashville says we need to protect Saka, hire Sancho as his food taster. That's a good one. I love it. What are you going to do for us? What are you going to do for us? You've done nothing. Wheezy says, I rate Sancho, but no, I don't like buying from rivals. They have an ad pressure, and it usually doesn't work, i.e. all our Chelsea signings, all of our signing all of our Chelsea signings he is on ridiculous wages, and he would have to come down on his wages to make any move, I think, because nobody's going to take him on, right? But man, like, I think my biggest gripe is ridding our rivals of relieving our rivals of mistakes that they've made. I think we did Chelsea a massive favor by getting Havertz from them, because they got to get almost all of their money back for the signing, and they were able to reinvest that money into better players, or players that maybe we should have been looking at. Like, if we had 70 million rolling around, could we have not tried to sign Caicedo? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's I want Manchester United to have to sit with this. I would love Manchester United to have to live with this albatross around their neck, like we had to with other players that we gave big contracts to that didn't work out. Nobody came and saved us. Like, nobody came and saved us. And, I think we need to allow our rivals to have to sit with these mistakes that they've made, and us sit back and laugh. Like, why would we save them? I don't understand. Now, a landing place, like a place where I do think that he could land, is Chelsea. I don't think Chelsea would find it, unattractive to bring in a player on high wages, a young player that they feel like they just want to harbor as much young talent as they possibly can. So I don't think Pep or Arteta would touch Sancho with a 10-foot pole. But would Chelsea take the opportunity to bring in Sancho? I think they would, because he's young, talented, and would be expensive. And that's pretty much all that they look for, when it comes to talent at this stage. Tamina says Toney only wants Arsenal. Only, he said, talking about, we're going to get to Ivan Toney in a second. Dennis says, I came here to type hell to the no. I love that. Make your opinion heard. Chosen One says, just what about Xavi Simons? Imagine him at Arsenal, although not sure where he would play. That's kind of my problem with anybody of a Sancho or Xavi Simons, or, I know that they're in two different eras. Like, Xavi Simons is coming up and Sancho is kind of plateaued and went down, but they're both players that I don't think have like a nailed on position. And we already have several players in that mold at Arsenal where we're trying to understand where they fit in best. So to add another one, maybe that's what Arteta wants. He wants versatility. His level of versatility for me looks like confusion. So personally for me, like, Arteta may love a player like that, where you don't really know where they'll play, but they can play across the midfield three, and they can also play across the front three. I don't know. I think Arteta likes those types of players. For me, it creates confusion in my head. So Xavi Simons, he's such a good player, but we already have so many players in this mold. So some of them would have to go in order to open up an opportunity for him to come in. But I rate him, I do. Amina says, hello, Jess and chat. Amina, we're talking about Sancho. Get stuck in. Martin says, Jess, what if Man United terminates Sancho's contract? Would you get Sancho for free? Juicy question. Would that make him take his fitness more seriously? Would that make him stop partying? I don't know. It's not just about how much he would cost. Like, it's not all just about that. It's, does he have the mentality to play for Arsenal? I think we're trying to be a serious club. I don't know if a serious club brings Jadon Sancho in, unless he just completely has a turnaround. Maybe this wakes him up and he, decides he really wants to take his shit seriously. But, his history would say, from Dortmund to Manchester United, that he's not a hard worker. It's not just at Manchester United where they've said that he hasn't trained well. That's also been the case at Dortmund, if you believe reports. So is he just going to turn that around magically at Arsenal? Like, it's not, it's the fee, it's the wages, it's the mentality, it's where does he fit in? There's so many questions. Like, it's not just about, like, did he look good on comps like 2 or 3 years ago? Like, I'm still watching Leverkusen comps trying to believe that Havertz is going to come good. I don't want to do that for Jadon Sancho as well. Do you know what I mean? So there's so many players. Like, if we want a player like that, there's so many players that we can go out there and get that fit that same profile, that don't have to be reprogrammed and rehabilitated back to health. So I think I'm good. Dennis says, I'll really be mad if Arteta tries this failed Wonder Kid gimmick again. Master says, Trossard fell out with De Zerbi and he is cooking as a squad player for us. If the price is right, Sancho would be good. So there's Master Wezel says, why not? Just because you fall out with Ten Hag doesn't mean that you'll fall out with Arteta. That still doesn't answer where he's going to play. That still doesn't answer how much he's going to cost. Like, there's still more questions. So, yeah, you can fall out with a manager and not fall out with another. That's very true. But there's still so many more questions, right? Nashville says he needs a Zaha move. I mean, maybe he needs to go to Saudi or Turkey or something, Igro says Chelsea have no class. Dale says, I agree. I'm tired of absolving our rivals of their sins. Gold says, I wouldn't want to play for Arteta. He's still not proven to be a top coach. He's just a good coach. The funny thing is most players feel differently. And then people across Europe, or like people that are actually within the industry, all consider Arteta to be a top coach. The only people that don't consider Mikel Arteta to be a top coach are rivals, So I think I'll probably listen to the players that are actually playing for Arsenal, that want to play for Arsenal, and other people in the industry, and not a Manchester United fan. There you go. Off the radar says no, he can go to City for free. Rodori says hell no. Dennis Wawero says even at Man City he had problems at the youth team. He was offered $30,000 a week wage to become the highest paid academy product at City and refused. Do you think that it's just like he just kind of thinks he's hot shit and he got to Man United and things kind of fell apart? Like, do you think that the rise for Jadon Sancho was so quick and so like, he got a lot for very early, that this reality check has kind of hit him? Is at a certain stage, unless you're Mbappe, like even Mbappe, I don't even know. Like, I just feel like at a certain stage, that young player that thinks that they're the shit but doesn't work hard is going to hit you at some stage, because once you're not young anymore and everything evens out, it does become about mentality and work rate and how you train and things like that, because everybody around you is just as talented as you. Everything kind of evens itself out. And so the way to get the edge is the mentality, how you work. Like Ronaldo I think is a really good example of this, where of course he's an extreme talent. Like he was like Cristiano Ronaldo is a special talent. But if he didn't work hard and have the mentality, he would have plateaued and people would have caught him up. So I do think that like at a certain stage, young players, that juice kind of like runs out and the reality check, it hits them and they're like, damn, just because I was good as a young player doesn't mean that it's going to just carry me through. Like, I need to be able to work within the margins and be like, how can I gain the edge a little bit more? And that's mentality, working hard, things like that. And maybe Jadon Sancho just didn't have that. I think Reece Nelson also had that realization as well. Like, you got your ass kissed so much in the academy that you start really thinking that you're that guy. And then you mature a little bit more. You come to the Premier League, you get your big move, and it's not the same. People expect you to perform and you're not doing anything to give yourself the edge. And everybody else is just as good as you, if not better, or they're willing to work harder. So it evens out like against your talent level. Jadon Sancho like was such a highly touted young player, and you still have to have the mentality. Like, look at Saka. Saka is somebody that I don't think people really spoke about that much coming out from the academy. We know it was Reece Nelson, albeit he was a couple years ahead of him. But Saka was somebody that got the opportunity, took the position at left back, made it his own, and had the mentality and the work rate, I think, to gain the edge on people that were lazy. And as we spoke about at the top of the show, 2 years makes a huge difference. If Jadon Sancho works as hard as Bukayo Saka, maybe he's the one that is the star of the England team. Maybe he's the one that people want. But it ends up being Saka, not because Saka's not like, he's just not somebody that I feel like could just rely on his talent alone. Saka was always going to have to work harder than everybody else to gain that edge. And he did that. And now he's there and Jadon Sancho is not, which is crazy. Igro says, what talent, when talent doesn't work hard, it's a shame, waste of talent. Off the radar says Arteta also picks characters. Chosen One says, don't pay attention to the troll. Oh, you guys are talking to each other. Nashville says Zaha move, i.e. lower level club to get his mentality right. Palace level team. Fair enough. Cassine says it's better to take players from a mid-table team with the right attitude. Trossard, Rice. Master Wessel says Man U is a graveyard for good technical players, like Chelsea is a graveyard for strikers. Sancho will be good after United, worth the risk if the price is right. I just think it's the type of risk that like a Aston Villa or a Brighton will take, or a Chelsea. I just don't, not like I'm, yeah, like I'm saying Chelsea are a mid-table team. Yeah. It's a mid-table team. But I just don't think it's a risk that Arsenal can afford to take, at this stage. Like if we have money to spend, it needs to be spent properly. And on that, let's talk about Ivan Toney, because if we want him, it's going to cost a lot of money. So Chelsea and Arsenal are said to be leading the race right now for Ivan Toney, which is interesting because I'm like, are we in it or are we not? Do we have money or do we not? Remember we spoke about what Ornstein said, that Arsenal have no like appetite or the cash to actually go out there and buy anybody in January, and the striker will be like looked at later on, meaning like the summer. But Mr. Dom Smith, who is a reporter for the Evening Standard, I don't know you, buddy, but fair enough, says that Brentford have an £80 million price tag on Ivan Toney. Chelsea and Arsenal are interested in our current front runners. Arsenal are weighing up if they should make the move to bolster the forward line in January. Y'all, what did I say? I said that at 50 to 60 million, Ivan Toney makes a lot of sense. When you start getting into the 80 millions, he starts making a little bit less sense. Now, do I feel like Arsenal will need to bolster their attack? I think they're going to need a plan B. I think that not so much from like we're not going to have enough goals in the team, but from a back against the wall at Anfield, kind of scenario, the Etihad, places in Europe where maybe we need a different route forward, where we can't play our passing game. We're going to need somebody up there that can hold the ball up and can link play and give us the edge in those matches. We're going to have quite a few of those, I think, towards the end of the season. And so when we can't play our game, what can we do to still win it? And so that's what Ivan Toney would give you. He would give you the ability to go more direct off of goal kicks and free kicks and things like that, give you a different type of look, make sure the center backs are not having an easy day out, right? As good as Eddie Nketiah played against Sheffield, which again, I feel like we should give him his flowers for that performance. I thought it was a little bit disappointing that I felt like some people were so desperate not to give him credit for just that performance. Just because he played well doesn't mean that changes the overall opinion on him as a player at Arsenal and whether or not he's good enough for us. But the desperation not to give him credit for me was disappointing, because it's just not that deep. We all know that Eddie Nketiah is not going to take us to the next level, but trying to invalidate the performance for me was a little bit like, are you serious? Like, if it was easy to get hat tricks, everybody would do it. And I don't care that it was Sheffield. 3 other of our rivals played against Sheffield and scraped a 2-1 win. So if it's so easy to get a hat trick, why didn't other players get it? I just find that to be a little bit like, why are we desperate to like not give him credit? It's like, I'm not saying that erases the last 5 games, but it's a hat trick. Give him credit. That being said, like, do you see Nketiah leaving? Like, I don't see him leaving in January. Like, Arteta said that he feels like he's top quality. Like, Arteta doesn't speak like that about very many players. He doesn't. Like, Arteta speaks he doesn't say very much about anybody. But when he says things like, I think this player is top quality, that makes me think that he really rates him. So is he going to get rid of Eddie, a player that he's relying upon now, that started almost every single game this season in January, in order to get Ivan Toney? I don't know. I don't know if I see that happening. The more Eddie plays, And the more that he's preferred over Trossard and Nelson, and is the first guy off the bench and the first guy called on, I just don't know if I see him going, in January. And I feel like that is what would need to happen in order to bring Ivan Toney in, you know? It's an interesting one, but 80 million is a lot. It is. Would you guys not prefer in the summer to tack on 20 million to that? Use that 80 million to bring in somebody a little bit more with more star quality like Osimhen? I don't know. But this feels like a Chelsea transfer to me still, just because like Ivan Toney may really want to come to Arsenal, which I do believe he does. I think like if it came down to it and both of us put in 80 million pound bids in January and he had to choose, he would choose Arsenal. But when I look at the way that our team is set up and what we've done over the last couple of transfer windows, we have not created a spot for him. We brought in Havertz and Ketty is still at the club. There's no natural spot for him there. Where at Chelsea, he comes straight in and starts like boom, just like that. And even though he may want to go to Arsenal, he's not just going to wait around. Like he's going to leave Brentford. So this feels like a natural Chelsea transfer just because we haven't created the space, which is a little bit disappointing because I feel like if you just go and get the left center mid, don't bring in Havertz, then it makes more sense that he could come in because you would have the money available. Like you wouldn't have the money available because you would have spent on left center mid, but you would just have that spot, even still, you still had to get rid of Eddie. Like, I don't know. Have Arsenal set up the squad in a way where you actually feel like they're going to go out there and get that striker in January? Do you actually think that? Like, I'm really thinking to myself, like, we may want him, but do we want him bad enough? Because if we wanted him bad, there would be a spot there. Like, we wanted Declan Rice, so there was a spot there. I don't know. I don't think we're going to get him. I think if we really wanted him, we would. But I'm not sure that I believe Arsenal are prepared to do this. What y'all think? Amira says, all this talk about attackers in January, but no defenders. Tommy might be gone a month. Partey right back, can't stay fit. Zinni and White have injury histories. White ain't got no injury history. And we have two DMs, sufficient attackers and Cedric. For me, I don't really think that defense is our main thing. I think we need another center back, but unless somebody gets a long-term injury now, if we get to January and we have the same options that we do now, I would just go to the end of the season with what we have. I'm not convinced that defense is somewhere where we need to be looking in January unless we get an injury. Now, midfield and the attack, maybe. But where's the spot? Like, I need to see a spot. Off the Radar says 80 million for a non-starter is insane, except we get him on loan. He doesn't come straight in and start for you. That's interesting. Jordan Davis says Jimenez is not good enough for a club like us. We need someone elite. There's only one elite striker out there. And we know who it is. Anybody else that you're getting is going to have a list of pros and a list of cons. I think Osimhen is the only player that comes into Arsenal with no cons. None. Like, I can't name a single con for bringing in Osimhen. And I think he's the only striker on the market that's worth 100 million. The only one. Age, profile, experience, the amount of goals that he scores, his threat, the star quality. He has absolutely everything and takes you to a completely different level. He's the type of striker that you put, like, you're going to have him for the next 5-6 seasons. He's going to really take you to the next level, but everybody else has pros and cons. Jimenez, the obvious con would be we haven't seen him in a top 5 league. That doesn't mean that he's going to flop at Arsenal. And, if Arsenal don't go for Osimhen, then you're either going to go for Toney, who's like a surefire thing, or everybody else is kind of like a project. I would prefer a striker that's already ready to go, but I'm not totally against a project striker. It just has to be the right one. But there's only one that's a slam dunk. That's the striker market is not healthy. Um, the striker market for me is not healthy. So we're kind of picking through this little, basket of strikers, and we're like, okay, this one looks okay, but it's a little too expensive. This one is he's really good in his league, but I don't know, is he going to do well at Arsenal? This one, he's expensive, but he's 18. There's not a lot of perfect choices. And so Toney is probably the most complete option that you can go for right now if you want to get him in January. And the most, like, he's available and all those types of things. There's cons to Toney, but he like what Dennis is saying is like, or it's not Dennis. I saw somebody say it like he instantly improves your squad. It's Master saying it. Toney improves the squad, period. He does improve the squad, but he's not an Osimhen level that's going to change the trajectory of the club. Those are two different types of players. So it just depends on what you want, but I'm still trying to understand, based on how we built the squad and how we're using Havertz and the importance of Eddie Nketiah for Mikel Arteta, if we even have prepared to bring in a Toney in January, because it doesn't feel like it. Dennis says, I really want Toney. I think he wins us the league if we got him in Jan. But 80 million for a 28-year-old who hasn't played for almost a year is a no from me. And that's kind of, it's 80 million, like 60 million for Toney sounds real good. But when you get to the 80 million, you start to think about the age and things like that. And I think he does help you win the league. That's the thing, is when you go into January and you buy a striker, it's because this player is going to help you reach your goal. I think Toney in this team gives you a boost that's going to help you potentially win the league, especially if you solve your midfield problem, right? Where you bring in the right balance, you have the right balance in midfield in order to create the chances and things like that. But at 80 million, it starts to look a little bit more, it looks a little funny in the light. So, Arsenal have to really think about that. Well, also we still have to pay Brentford 30 million for Raya, so there's a lot going on. Nashville says Osimhen raises the ceiling. Exactly. Osimhen raises our ceiling. Toney raises our floor. They're probably the two best options that I'm seeing at the moment. And then you have project strikers that I'd be interested in, but equally they have pros and cons, but you have to trust the recruitment in that regard. If that makes sense. Corey says, I've said this before, Ivan Toney is like Zaha, can be great for a mid-table team, but will never be good enough for a top club. Igro says, a lot depends on if Osimhen would be interested in a move to Arsenal. I think he would. That's a transformative player. I've always said this as well, that there, like, for 2 years, there hasn't been any links to Osimhen. We spoke to his agent and didn't go for him. So I could assume all day long that he would want to come to us, Osimhen, but maybe he doesn't. Maybe he has another Premier League club that he has a bigger affinity to, or, that's the one he wants to go to, or maybe he wants to stay at Napoli. So, Osimhen is a little bit of a dream right now. Would be the perfect option for us if he wants to come to Arsenal. If we knew for a fact that he wanted to come in the summer, I would say wait. But if we don't know that for sure, then we kind of have to think about the now. Think about the now, or take a risk on a player in the summer. That's probably a project. The striker market is not healthy to me. It's not good, so we're picking through a basket and we're just trying to figure out, like, does this really work? Does this really work? And this also might be the reason why Arsenal will not bring in a striker, because we know that they're not just going to buy anybody for the sake of it, which I kind of agree with, but damn, Rep 187 says Osimhen screams Chelsea signing, in my opinion. And Off the Radar says, watched an interview of Osimhen and his friends, and they were all about Chelsea. And exactly, like, that doesn't mean 100% that the player is just going to go there, but he has to want to come to Arsenal, right? And so if there's a chance that, Chelsea will buy him in the summer, then maybe he'll wait for Chelsea, So I'm not deluded enough to think that every single player wants to come to Arsenal. I know that there's players that have affinities towards other clubs and will wait for that club. Now, if Chelsea go ahead and spend that 80 million on Toney, I think that takes them out of the running, a potential running for Osimhen. So that could be something that works in our favor. So Silmi says striker should wait. Dennis says, I think in the long run, we'll end up getting Toney. The question is whether we get him in January or the summer. Do you guys want him if we don't get him in January? I don't know if I want him if it's not in January. I think if it's not in January, then I'm willing to get somebody that I feel like is a level raiser if we can, you know. I think January you get Toney because you want him to help you win the league. I don't know if you get him in the summer, I don't know. That's kind of the difference for me. Corey says Vlahovic is the answer. To what question? To what question? Is Vlahovic, I mean, it's like, it's like that meme where you look, that meme, you guys seen it before, where you look at it and you go, mm-mm. Like, that's kind of how I feel about Vlahovic. Like, he has all the tools. Like, he's he has the physicality, he has the height and the strength and all that. He looks great on comps. He takes free kicks, he scores penalties. But when I watch him play, I just feel like, is he good enough? Is he good? Is he not? So it's interesting. Boy says, yo, over my dead body is Sancho coming to Arsenal. I will fucking riot. I love it. Arsenal says Mudryk was twerking for us. It's not hard to go. It is not hard to go for Osimhen. Yeah, it's not 100% guarantee that he wants to go to Chelsea just because that's probably his preferred club who he supports in the Premier League. All I'm saying is that, like, there has to be an indication that he has interest in coming to Arsenal. I think a lot of that would be based on how we do in the Champions League and how we do in the Premier League this season. I think a player like Osimhen is going to want to come to a club that he feels like is going to win the Champions League and the Premier League, which we haven't really shown anything in Europe yet. And last season we got close, but we failed. So, I think a lot of that would depend on that. Blaze says, just what striker type do you think Arsenal to sign? Do you really believe Toney is that striker who could win us the title if he comes in January? Yes, I do think if Toney came in January, he could help us win the title. He would give us what we need in those games back against the wall, where we know we'll be in those games at the Etihad, at Liverpool, games like that where the stress is going to be on. I think we have a really difficult run in towards the end of the season. So sometimes it's just seeing another player come in that's a top quality player, gives your team that boost, and then just in general, but having another option to just have that plan B, have somebody that's confident on penalties, that can have the dead ball situation covered. Those things make a difference when the margins are really fine. Is that worth 80 million? Maybe to Arsenal it is worth 80 million because we need to win the league. Like, not we need to win it, but this is another really good opportunity this season to win the league. I think based on what we've seen in the first quarter, we are very much so in the title race. Like, we are in it. We should be looking to win it. My personal type of striker is not Toney, though. Like, my preferences are different to maybe what the club likes. Like, I like Isak. Isak is the type of striker from a profile perspective that I would love Arsenal to have. That's it. Maybe it's the Thierry Henry in me. Like, you know what I mean? But Osimhen would also be maybe somebody, but he's more like a Drogba to me. So I'd prefer an Isak. Would I take a Toney to win the league? Yes. If we got past January and didn't bring him in, would I want to look at other options? Yes. So the context is really important, I think. Richie Rabbit says, when Eddie scores goals against top teams, I'll be convinced. Until then, it's great when he scores hat tricks against champions level teams, but it doesn't mean much. It doesn't have to mean anything. It doesn't have to mean anything. Like, that's the thing. It's like, it doesn't have to mean anything. I think people felt like the praise of Eddie meant something. It doesn't mean anything, but he's a player that showed up, scored goals in a game where we needed them goals. So bravo. I don't know why it's so difficult to just get, like, why does it have to be, oh, it's so great that he scored a hat trick against a championship side? can we not just give him his flowers and like not have some stank on it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like people, they hate Eddie so much. And I'm not, like, people will probably consider me one of Eddie's biggest haters. Fair enough. But I just don't really understand why it's so hard to just give him credit. He is not, he's like a mid table striker scoring a hat trick for Arsenal at the Emirates against Sheffield. I don't care who it's against. Bravo, Eddie. Like, just give him credit without it having to be, oh, it's a championship level team. So why do we even care? Don't mean much. It doesn't have to mean anything. It doesn't have to mean anything. Damn, like Eddie, I don't rate him, but like, damn, do we have to be this way? Amira says, didn't see Holland or Son score a hat trick. Christopher says, we got 3 points. That's good for me. Philip says, Zubamendi in and Partey out in January would have more of effect on the title than Toney. I like that take. I like that take a lot. Dennis says, Osimhen to Chelsea screams that Torres transfer to me. I think he goes, and within 5 months, they get tired of him. I've seen the script. A says, we keep talking about strikers, but rarely talk about the lack of chance creation. I would rather we prioritize a creative player. Kind of talked about that a couple of weeks ago, not a couple of weeks ago, last week with James, which if you guys have not watched that show, you guys should, because it's really good. But we spoke about all the different elements of why we're not creating chances and why we don't look the same in the final third. And, you know, I've spoken up many times about, like, if we can't get the midfield balance right, then a midfielder needs to be a bigger priority than the striker. Now, if we get through the next 2 months and our chance creation goes up, but we end up seeing that maybe our strikers are not as clinical as we need them to be, then it becomes the striker situation. I think in the next 2 months, we'll learn a lot about the team. Right now, we have a little bit of an issue with not having one of our better midfielders available to us. He might be the key to unlock a balanced midfield for Arsenal in the short term. So I don't think I don't think it's a long-term solution, but from now until the end of the season, it could be, so I think a lot of Arsenal's issues have come from a chance creation perspective of, we have different players in positions that we had, uh, like, uh, really good people in that knew what they were doing, and it was just like a natural thing between Odegaard, Xhaka, and Partey. We've lost that. Zinchenko hasn't been as effective this season because teams have clocked how to keep him from getting into those central spaces. The left side has been absolutely imbalanced the entire season. We haven't seen any sort of like that kind of like Zinchenko, Xhaka, Martinelli. That hasn't been there all season. So Martinelli's been out, Zinchenko's been out, no Xhaka. So all of that has been kind of broken off. And as soon as we got Jesus and Martinelli back together, that's broken again. And then something is going on with Odegaard, and we're not able to get him into zone 14 doing what he does best. He's a lot deeper and a lot more isolated, and so that's affecting Saka. So we spoke about all those things, and like I've said before, if we get through the next 2 months and Partey can't maintain his fitness and he's still out and he goes away for AFCON in January, like whatever, and he can't be fit for the next 2 months, then, we might need to get in a midfielder, because he's probably the one that's going to allow us to have a more balanced midfield that creates the chances and helps Odegaard on that right-hand side. So it may end up being the midfielder, but if, like, let's say Thomas Partey, after he gets back from this last injury, is fit for, a month, and we feel like he can maintain his fitness, whatever, and we don't bring in a midfielder and we get the striker, it could just be that we need Partey to come back in, So I think a lot of it has to do with really whether or not Thomas Partey gets fit. If he does, then go for the striker. Because I agree with a lot of other people that I feel like our best midfield probably is, at this stage, Rice and Partey and Odegaard. And doing the research, it was pretty clear that, Odegaard needs those balls in between the lines to him, those disguised passes, because Rice is not really doing those as much as Partey was. And so, yeah, I agree with Philip that it's not as clear as just getting a striker. But if we can balance out the midfield, then a striker would definitely help us. That's kind of the point from me. Dale says, who on the current squad scores those 3 goals? I want a striker upgrade, but come on, was that game a breeze without Eddie? I mean, all I'm saying is, can we not give the man some flowers, okay? And it's not his fault that he's here. Or he's playing. Let's see. Yo-Yo says the credit stops after the final whistle. Sheffield are a promoted team that are championship bound who were riddled with injury. Eddie did his job. Well, yeah, like again, like it doesn't have to go that far. Like again, I feel like people want to be harsh for the sake of being harsh on something that we don't even like. Nobody is changing their opinion on Eddie Nketiah. I have not seen a single person that doesn't rate Eddie say he's the answer now. And it's like, oh, well, he did his job. I mean, it's a hat trick. Like, that is special for any striker. Like, why can't we acknowledge it? I know we want to be like high standards FC all the time, but like, I feel like people are going overboard because they don't like Eddie. It's not his fault that he's here. Shit. Jordan says Thomas Partey is 40 years old and has been lying to us. Fair enough. So yeah, but the Eddie conversation is just so like, I get it. I'm probably considered one of his biggest haters, but like being harsh for the sake of keeping high standards is just kind of like, come on, he's Hale End. We can soften for a moment, can't we? Arteta speaks on Patino. Patino is my new project, you guys. I need him in this team, okay? But Patino's doing really well at Swansea, and now before somebody says he's not good enough, we need a proper midfielder there. We need somebody with experience. We need to go out there and buy a world-class midfielder. Before y'all say that to me, okay? I know. I know that. I'm not saying I want him in the team and I don't want to buy anybody there. I'm just saying that Jorginho's old, Thomas Partey's old, El Nenny's old. He can take one of their spots. If y'all think we're about to buy 3 midfielders in one window, you got another thing coming. So we need to use our academy, and we got a player out on loan that looks good. So why not bring him back in? Mikel Arteta said this of Charlie Patino's progress. He says there's always a pathway to get back. And when we make decisions on those players, it is always to keep an eye on them and to see if we can evolve the squad in a way. And the first thing that we can do is look internally. So not really saying that much. Like he's not saying, yeah, I want to bring him back, whatever. But I think in order to bring Charlie Patino back, he would need to be offered a new deal. I think he's running his contract down. And you do not want to lose Charlie Patino on a free. If you were desperate to keep Reece Nelson, then you need to be desperate to keep Charlie Patino because we don't have midfielders of his profile. Somebody that's actually a midfielder. We have a bunch of number 10s floating around trying to play 8. This guy plays the 8. He can play deep in midfield, and he's gotten it. Like if you can play in the championship, then you could play in the Premier League, and from a physical standpoint. And I think he has like 5 assists already this season, Charlie Patino. He looks good. I'm not saying he's the answer. So again, I get we need to still buy somebody. That's not what I'm saying. Take that out of your brain. Take it out. But I'm saying, can he fill one of those squad positions? Absolutely. I think he can. He has 1 goal and 4 assists. That's good. And I think he wasted probably a year at Blackpool. He played 34 matches for Blackpool and got 2 goals and 4 assists. We're only a quarter of the way this season, and he already has almost the exact same amount. So I'm loving Patino. I don't want him to go. I think we should be desperate to keep him and to allow him to have one of those squad positions to not only save money, but because I feel like it. So yeah, he's my new project. Chris Frazier says there's room for an academy kid or 2 next season. Patino and MLS are ready for some minutes here and there. Exactly. And if you can give him, the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup and let him cook, without pressure, then I think it makes a lot of sense to me. So yeah, like why not? Jordan Davis says, Jess, what about Micah Bareth? Do you think he can turn into a world-class striker? I don't know. Like, I think he's like, didn't he just come back from injury and like scored a goal like in the first couple of minutes after he got back from that injury, but he was already doing really well. Strikers are hard to gauge, I think, because I think strikers are, if they're not playing at the same level as where you're playing at, it's hard to know whether or not those goals will translate. So potentially he could become a world-class striker, right? Um, I think strikers do develop a little bit slower, and it's rare that you get a Holland. It's rare. And even if you think you're getting another Holland, it's probably Hoyland. And Hoyland is not really setting the world alight. He looks like a really good prospect. So is he a good prospect? Probably. Could he become world class? I don't know. But I'm I'd rather us go out there and get a striker and see how he develops. That's kind of look at Eddie. Like Eddie is the type like see how many goals he scored for the under 21s, but that same level of consistency didn't naturally convert over to what he does for us, So it's hard to know whether or not Bareth is that guy, but I would say good prospect for sure. Chris Frazier says Micah, maybe it's Micah, has a lot of potential, but he's years off playing in the first team, in my opinion. Nashville says I have no idea about Patino. Strangely, I don't watch Swansea games. You should watch some Swansea games, Nashville. How dare you not? Amira says Patino's song alone has earned him 25-man team spot. Chosen One says, Jess, what are your preferred lineup tomorrow? We'll get into that in a second. Ivy says the scenes when Patino goes to Chelsea and does not extend. I hope he extends. Do not speak that into existence. Do not speak that into existence. That is like, I actually think he's somebody that, he leaves us for free when we don't extend him and he goes to Brighton and then Chelsea buy him for 100 million. I think that's the pathway. If we don't get him on a new deal, I think we'd be stupid not to. He's spoken about wanting to make it into the first team at Arsenal. So it's a goal of his. And he said that he looks at Saliba's pathway as the pathway back in. This is a Hale ender. So bring him back. Like, why would you not? Dale says, when's the last time you've heard Balogun's name? Crickets. Balogun's actually doing really well at Monaco. So I actually see on my timeline quite a bit people bitching about us selling Balogun. So I don't know if we've made like the biggest mistake in the world selling Balogun, but Balogun is doing well for me. Like, I just am okay with him going because he didn't want to fight for his spot. It's just that simple. If he wanted to fight for a spot, I would have kept him. I would have preferred to keep him, but he didn't. He wanted to go out there and be the first choice. So what can you do? Good for Balogun, Chidozi says, do you think Patino will have the game time when ESR can't get in the present depleted midfield? It depends. I have questions on whether Arteta trusts Emile Smith-Rowe. I think his injuries were kind of an issue, and then whether or not he trusts him off the ball. I think that's actually ESR's biggest reason why he can't get into the team is not what he can do on the ball. It's does Arteta trust him off the ball? We know that this season, more than seasons past, like we've been very cognizant of how we are off the ball and keeping our shape and being reliable defensively. And I think that's ESR's probably only downfall when it comes to getting into Mikel Arteta's side. And then he's more of a number 10 than a number 8. Charlie Patino is a midfielder, so he, I think, has a better chance. And then when you watch him at Swansea, he's good off the ball, interceptions, blocks, getting stuck in. He does those things like a midfielder would, where Emile Smith-Rowe is a number 10. You can't really, somebody that was like a Wenger baby that grew up in the Arsenal Academy Hale End and plays as a number 10 is going to be highly focused on what he does on the ball. So I don't really blame ESR. I just think his development has taken him in a position where it's like the manager that we have right now doesn't necessarily have those same the same affinity towards those qualities. He wants players that off the ball are going to get into that shape and keep us from being exposed. And when we don't play with a natural number 10 and we play with 8s, those players have much more responsibility. So I actually think that's ESR's biggest downfall. Not so much, and it's not, to me, it's not really his fault. I think it's just more he doesn't naturally fit the system. Now, I'm looking at Patino and I'm like, that's somebody that fits in our system. So if Arteta doesn't extend him or doesn't want him, I'd be a little bit disappointed in that. Tawanda says ESR has always been injury prone, banger baby. Fair enough. Let's see. If Crispy says if Chelsea actually went in for him, that would be confirmation they're a dusted club. Yo-Yo says, whatever happened to Noweri? He played one game and disappeared. I think he's been injured sometimes this season, and he's 16. So we wanted to, I think obviously playing him at the time that we played him was a way to show him how much we rate him so that he'd sign the new deal. And then they probably explained what the pathway is going to be. I don't think they said, okay, we'll sign this deal and then you're going to start for the first team. But he's 16, so there's no rush to try to get him into the team and put him in a situation where we need to rely upon him. Like, I don't think Noweri needs to be in the team now. I actually think like a loan would do him very well. Bring Patino in, give Noweri and Cozier Dewberry and MLS all really good loans, and then see how they develop. We don't have to have him in the first team right now. Keenan says Patino would be great cover at left center mid. Thank you. That's exactly what I'm saying. Left center mid is exactly where he should be playing. Nashville says he's 17, right? He does not need first team time at this point. I agree. So let's talk a little bit about the Declan Rice derby tomorrow. Y'all, I already seen some West Ham fans saying that they want their players to hurt Declan Rice tomorrow. Declan Rice, he was so worth that whole saga. He was so worth the stress. That player is so good. I'm so glad we have him. But yeah, I think he's going to play tomorrow. I think Arteta basically said that Declan Rice was going to play tomorrow. He's going to play a part. So that's good to know. I don't know how you go into that game without him, without Partey anyway. So I expect Declan Rice to play. Look, nobody really rates this energy drink cup. I don't know how I really feel about it either. I feel like because of who's left in the competition, Man City being out of it, that it's a really winnable cup at this stage for Arsenal. And this is the cup that Man City would always win before they won the Premier League early on. And so I want it. I want it because we don't know what it's going to be like in the FA Cup. We don't know who we're going to get. We could get Man City in the first round like we did last time, So seeing how it's kind of shaped up, no Man City, one of Newcastle or Man United will be out of it tomorrow. That leaves Liverpool and Chelsea. It's a very winnable cup for Arsenal. And so I want us to take it serious. Now, what does taking it serious mean? I don't mean we have to go out there with our best 11. We can't even go out there with our best 11 because players are not fit. But I do think that we should go stronger than we did against Sheffield and stronger than we did against Brentford. I think it's a much more difficult proposition going away to the London Stadium. They'll be desperate as well to win a game, not only because it's a London derby and it's the Declan Rice derby, but because they haven't won a game in 3. So West Ham are going to be desperate to turn that around. And so it's going to be a really difficult game tomorrow. And so what I don't want to do is go in there with a super weak lineup and then have to try to play catch up. I'd rather go just a little bit stronger than we did against Sheffield. Meaning if Odegaard's fit enough, I'd bring him back in, Declan Rice, and one of ESR or Kai Havertz. Take your pick. Pick either one of them. Maybe you start Jorginho. Maybe you feel like Jorginho would be a better fit. Whatever. But definitely Declan Rice and Odegaard. The front three that started against Sheffield. And at the back, Tommy maybe come back in. It depends. If Jorginho is there, you don't need Zinchenko. If Jorginho is not there, then you need Zinchenko. So that might inform, if you don't want to see Zinchenko and you want to stop Bowen from doing Bowen things. Bowen is a dangerous player. I think I could say that and you guys would say, yeah, he is a dangerous player, right? So if he plays, you'd probably want Tommy there. So maybe you play Jorginho. I think that's the formula, right? I'd let Kivior keep his spot, Saliba and Ben White and Ramsdale in goal because these are the games that he should be playing. So yeah, I would go pretty strong. Some people probably go a lot weaker because they don't care, but it's a winnable cup. And I'm tired of going out of cups just for the sake of it, just because we don't care. We don't know what's going to happen in the FA Cup. So we can say, oh, we want that. We want to take the FA Cup serious. We don't know what's going to happen then. We don't know what kind of injury crisis we're going to be in. We don't know anything. All we know is that there is a cup right in front of us that's very winnable. And I want to win it because it's there to be won. I'm tired of going out of cups. I know that people, it's just the Carabao Cup. It's not like we won a bunch of them. So we are not winning cups at a rate where I think we need to be looking down at a Carabao Cup. Okay. Off the Radar says at least we can try to make the finals. Exactly. Amira says Big Gabby will definitely play Arsenal. Arteta didn't rest him for nothing. Fair enough. Kivior on the bench. Graham Caldwell says Rice needs to be rested tomorrow with Partey being unavailable. Midfield should be Jorginho, ESR, Vieira, Nelson, and Trossard should start. Ramsdale needs game time. Graham. You know when Declan Rice can rest? He can rest against Burnley. We play Burnley in a couple weeks. He should rest against Burnley. Like, we can't go to London Stadium with that midfield. That midfield's getting eaten up. That midfield right there is lunch. Mind you, like unless West Ham go really, really soft, like they have Alvarez, they have Ward-Prowse, Kudus, and Paquetá. Every single one of those players are very combative. You think Jorginho and ESR and Vieira are going to touch the ball? Chow, please. I am not going to that midfield right there is getting ate the hell up. Nuh-uh. In terms of Nelson and Trossard, maybe, but why not start Saka and Martinelli? Why not? You know, again, like I think we need to try to win this cup. But maybe Arteta says like, okay, we want to win it with as little resources as possible. We'll know how Arteta feels about this cup because the way that he put the team together against Sheffield, I thought he treated that like the Carabao Cup. That's how I felt. You know, so what is he going to do against West Ham? Now, the way that he set up the team against Brentford, we may see that midfield out there. So, we'll see. Philip says, we need this Carabao Cup so bad. Let's do this. Richie Rabbit says, I want maxed up Rice versus Newcastle. I mean, do we think Rice is in the red zone? Has he given any indication? He walked around against Sheffield. This is why we bought Declan Rice, to play 99% of the games. Rodri plays every single game for Manchester City, but we're so afraid to not have Rice. Like, they'll know whether or not Rice needs to be rested or not. So we'll see. Let's see. Rep 187 says, I expect Kivior and Gabby will start and Saliba off the bench. That would be really interesting. Off the Radar says he might keep the Sheffield lineup damp. Dennis says Arteta is definitely going strong tomorrow. Nashville says Cedric should start. He is class and deserves more. I'm not falling for it. Amira says, whatever we think of this cup, you can't deny that winning a trophy early-ish in the season will do wonders for confidence going into the final stretch. Something that I'll say that I'm not a big fan of this mindset when it comes to our fan base is we kick ourselves out of cups early, I think, to make an early excuse about why it's okay to go out of these cups. So we got bigger fish to fry is something that comes to mind. You know, last season, the Europa League, it doesn't really matter. As soon as we go out of the cup, it doesn't really matter. We have other things to focus on. I just want us to be like for real for one time. You know, it's okay to want to win something and expect to go far in it. You know what I mean? And I think that we've gotten so used to being, I'm going to say a really harsh word, but I feel like you guys, we need to hear it. We're so used to being losers that we feel like the mentality that we have is like fine, and it's not. The Carabao Cup is not the most prestigious, but there's a reason why City would try to win it every season. That didn't mean that they didn't rotate, but they didn't take it like, oh, it's just okay to go out. We haven't won enough to be okay to just go out of the Carabao Cup. It's silverware at the end of the day. If we won a Carabao Cup and we finished second in the league and we went a deep run in the Champions League, I think, you know, that's a much better season than just being like, no Carabao Cup, no nothing. And, you know, we were in a title race. You see what I'm saying? So Arsenal have more than enough depth to feel like we could go kind of strongish against West Ham and keep going in this cup. But I think we kick ourselves out of the cups early to make an excuse because maybe we don't feel confident, maybe we don't want to feel hurt because we continuously go out of these cups easy. Arsenal should be really competitive in every single cup competition. Unless we get City in the early rounds, that's the only one where I'm like, damn, we got City in an early round, like we did against that, in the FA Cup last season. But I think Arsenal fans continuously saying like, I don't care about this cup. It's nothing. It doesn't matter. It's just it's a distraction. Sometimes for me is a little bit like it's giving excuses. Ivy says we need all the trophies we can get. Winning cups boosts the team's mentality. It's a win-win. And again, like it's one of those things too, like it's one of those things as well where this team hasn't won anything yet. Like, of course, Arteta won the FA Cup, but like this team hasn't won anything yet. I think it would really do them a world of good to win some real silverware. The Community Shield is not real silverware, but winning the Carabao Cup would give them some sort of confidence, especially for the rest of the season. So I want us to try as hard as possible to win it. I'm not saying we have to play our best 11 every single game, but this idea that we should just like throw it is just like so annoying. And I'm not saying that that's what you guys are saying, but some people are basically saying that. And we've been saying that for years. Like, let's try something else. Like, you know what I'm saying? Chris Fraser says, winning breeds more winning. Off the Radar says we might get Mansfield in the next round. Dennis says City use that trophy as a stepping stone every season. Let's stop treating it as a useless trophy. If we want the squad to know what it's like winning, go for the League Cup early. Blaze says, Jess, I get what you said, but we also should trust ESR and Vieira. They should get more games. Odegaard can't play all the games. The thing about that midfield is it can't exist without Declan or Thomas Partey. It just cannot. So even if you want to play ESR and Vieira and let Odegaard rest, I'm okay with that. But not with Jorginho. No. Because even when we played against Brentford, we had Kai Havertz, and at least he can win duels and win headers. Like I just kind of feel like that's a little bit too lightweight for the occasion. But I get what you guys are saying. I'm not saying don't rotate, but this idea that it's just like it's just a nothing cup. We don't win enough. Dale says, do you really want to lose to West Ham going into the Newcastle match? I don't. I just think we just should try. Like sometimes I just don't feel like we've taken it seriously enough. That's how I feel. C. Walder says, I really want to see another ESR star tomorrow, obviously. To me, honestly, like I would start ESR. I would. I thought he did enough to keep his spot. That's how I feel. I think ESR for me on rewatch was a lot more effective than Kai. Now, it's Sheffield, so whatever. But I just thought ESR, like, he just had a little bit more about him, and I'd like to see a little bit more of him. So, ESR plus Odegaard plus Rice for me is a perfectly good enough, midfield for the day. If you want to go with Vieira instead, I guess. But ESR for me keeps his spot because I just thought he did enough. I thought he was good, against Sheffield, and he's on the cusp of scoring a goal. I just feel like he looks like somebody that's on the edges of doing something. And so if you want to get the most out of him, let him keep his spot. He did really well against Brentford as well. Like, I think this is the ESR Cup. He needs more minutes in this cup, I think. Boy says the reason we needed out of the cups last season was because we had a good shot at the league and we didn't have the players to rotate effectively. We now have the rotation options we can challenge. I don't agree with this. I think the idea that we just did not have the squad last season, I don't know. And I thought really as soon as we went out of all the cups, we actually looked worse and less prepared. These kind of cups give the opportunity for players like Vieira and ESR to keep their fitness up. And so I don't think going out of cups gives you anything, really. I think to me, it's a little bit farcical. It's something that we've told ourselves for years that, we need to only have to focus on one thing because we don't have any depth. Well, your depth don't get any minutes and aren't fresh if you don't have anything else to play in. It keeps you fresh. It keeps you competitive. And so, I mean, how much different is our depth? Like, Thomas Partey is still not fit, so take him out of the equation in terms of our depth. We had Tomiyasu all the way up until what? March? So how much different is our depth really from last season to this season? How much different is it? How many players are different? I'm really trying to figure it out because a lot of the players that we're looking at right now were on the bench last season. So what has really changed? I really do think that we thought that those players were not good enough, or like we've just completely got all this new depth. Kivior was here from January, so was Jorginho, so was Trossard from January. But like Tomiyasu was fit for quite a bit of the season. Like, no, come on, man. Come on. I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. I really think we make these excuses. Blaze says, I agree with you. Declan Rice should play tomorrow. I don't think it's a game to play for Jorginho versus West Ham unless we go with the two of them. That would allow you to drop Zinchenko if that's what you want to do. Let's see. Yo-Yo says, I just want to see ESR Fabio get as long of a leash as Kai gets. I want to see Trossard respected as much as Eddie is. I want to see the squad used. Otherwise, what is Edu doing? Fair enough. So yeah, Boy says, okay, I don't want to hear any excuses about Saliba getting injured with Tomiyasu last season. That's just a freak accident. That could have happened anytime. Like, it's like people, oh, well, dude, this is why we should have bombed out of the Europa League because look at these injuries. Like, come on now, like, be for real. And even at that, when people are saying, well, Saliba and Tomiyasu's injury is what really killed us off last season, Arteta still got Kivior and did not play him. He chose to play Holding. He did not have to play Holding. So it's still just an excuse. We're letting them off the hook. Like, Saliba and Tomiyasu did hurt us, but you bought Kivior. You didn't play him. And when we started playing him, it was like, damn, why wasn't he in there? He chose to play Holding. That was a choice that Mikel Arteta made. So yeah, I don't really agree. I think we should try to stay in the cups and keep our players as fresh as possible. I think we've gotten too used to being uncompetitive and, play a decently strong lineup against West Ham and let's go. Let's see how we do. But yeah, you guys, player ratings tomorrow, live watch along tomorrow, all the content tomorrow. So obviously we do the pre-match vibes to react to the team news an hour prior. So you guys can hop on that and we can chit chat about team news, and Boy will come and yell at me about how strong the lineup is because we're going to get injuries, have a little bit of fun. And yeah, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. We're about 200 subs away from 20K. And I want to do a giveaway for 20K. So make sure you guys subscribe if you're new. Like the video and subscribe to the channel on your way out. And yeah, that's kind of all the news. If you guys want to take a peek at the show that I did with Gabby and Femi for Sheffield, we had so much fun on that. You guys can join Patreon. There's also like a little preview of it. So if you're like, I'm not sure if I want to join Patreon, you can see a little bit of a preview by clicking the link in the description. And you'll be able to see a little bit of a preview of that show if you're like, I just want to try it. Also thinking about doing a little bit of like a 7-day free trial for Patreon. So let me know if you guys are interested in that. If you're like, I want to try a Patreon, but I'm not sure if I'm going to like the content. Let me know if you want a 7-day like free trial, and I'll put it up there for you guys so you guys can try it before you buy it. Let's see what you guys are saying. Philip says, to be fair to Arteta, Kivior made 2 crap appearances in Europa. Don't care. Don't care. Holding has been crap for a million years. So what's more substantial? Holding's millions of bad performances over the 10 years that he was at Arsenal, or Kivior's first appearance ever for Arsenal? Kivior also didn't play the second leg against Sporting, I don't think. Did he? So no. Holding's bad performances for years. Kivior's bad performance for the first time he ever played for Arsenal. So there you go. Tawanda says, bye. Boy says, regardless whether the players are there or not, Arteta has to trust them to play crutch matches. Kasim says, we shouldn't be selling Partey. We shouldn't be selling Partey. Keep him. Boy says, if he doesn't, then it's no use in talking about depth. Yeah, fair enough. And Juju says, love your content. So get in the comments after. And let me know what you guys thought, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Love y'all.